Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming on. We are going to be continuing our look at the book of Genesis, and we will be continuing our look at Genesis 34. But before I do that, I just want to say how grateful I am that all of you are on. It would not be the same without you. And I am just trusting God that these sessions are helping you to develop a better appreciation for how to read the Bible and what is there in the text. Like me, you may have been exposed to teachings over the several years, interpretations of what these things mean, but you may also have encountered areas in which you came up with questions. And so you would read to a part and you are stuck and you don't know where to go because you come upon a verse that just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem to fit in. And so you just pass that verse and you jump down and you pick up elsewhere and read, and the next thing you know, you really don't understand what you have read. Now, here I want to help you to understand how to look at the Bible, how to approach it, what are the key things to look at, because the structure of the Bible, how it is written, is somewhat different from how we are used to seeing literature being laid out in our time, right? And as God has allowed me, I've been able to see these kinds of patterns, notice the differences, and that's what I'm trying to bring to you in part, how to read the Bible, how to get a fulsome look at what the Bible is saying, how to treat with things when they are repeated, what to look for to know if it is just being said the second time or, whatever. But that is that. So I just want to welcome you again in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. It wouldn't be the same without you, right? And may the Lord bless you in an immense way today. Amen and amen. So let's go back to where we had left off last week. So last week we had picked up our discussion looking at Jacob going to Shechem or to Succoth, building a house, then going to Shalem, a city of Shechem, and pitching his tent there, building an altar. El Elohi, Israel, is the name of the altar that was given there. We have learned from our last discussion that this was an altar Jacob should never, ever, ever in his wildest dream have made. This became a downfall for him, and it led to severe consequences in his family, namely his daughter getting raped. Right? This altar led to that. Now, what we had established was that Jacob, when he came back from Padan Aram, he went and he built a house here in Succoth. And the Bible tells us that he built a house. He set down roots in Succoth, which he should never have. He should have gone to his father and there to stay, because God had told him, go back to your father. He comes back into Canaan. He may have paid his father a visit, but he didn't stay there. And part of the reason he didn't stay there was that Esau was still there. Remember, Esau was his father's favorite. He was extending his family and he was there around his parents in the neighborhood. He was doing all of this. He had his things there. Jacob, the Bible doesn't spell it out this way, but maybe he didn't want the confrontation. He felt that he was blessed. God had blessed him. God was continuing to bless him. So he didn't want the drama. So he left things to Esau. That was not the mind of God. And he went and settled down in this place. Went now moving up and down, possibly going now and setting up his tent in Shechem. Right? Shouldn't have been there. He should have been down where his father was, down in not Beersheba, down in, it will come back to me, I don't remember, Hebron, down in Hebron, right? He should have been down in Hebron, but he didn't do that. He went and he settled here. Now the Bible tells us that he also built an altar. He built this altar without consulting. And you notice the Bible doesn't say he erected an altar to the Lord. This altar was never to have built. God did not recognize this altar as being legitimate. Right? It opened a portal to the devil into the life of Jacob, and the devil worked it and punished him greatly. And the first thing he did was to cause his one daughter to be raped. Right? I know this may be strange for some persons. I'm going to invite you to listen last week's recording. Right? But this is what it is. When the Lord showed me this last week, as I told you, I had to get up out of my chair. I couldn't sit down. Right? This was like hitting the wind out of me. I just never saw that one coming. All right? But we are going to see how God told Jacob how to fix the problem later down. All right? So here now we had looked at what had happened to Dinah. We had looked at some of the words, like she went out, and what we discovered was that here it talks about breakout, escape, get away. So what we are being told is that Dinah snuck out of the compound, right, out of the safety of where her parents were, and went out into the country. Right? And because she didn't have her father's blessing, she didn't have her normal bodyguards. So her mother and no chaperone were there to help protect her. And she fell victim to this young man called Shechem, who had his eyes on her for some time. Because wasn't like the first week she went there. This was happening. They were there for an extended period of time, where the Bible even tells us that Jacob bought land. Right? This was different from when Abraham, his grandfather, bought land for a burial spot. He had his wife to bury, and he buried her, and the Bible never told us that he stayed there. He went away because the command was for him to move up and down in the land. Jacob was supposed to do the same thing because he grew up with his father and his grandfather doing that. But here now he comes and he settles down, breaks the covenant between God and his foreparents, coming down to him, being the one to carry the promise. Right? He broke it, and he was made to pay dearly for what he did. So his daughter went out, and Shechem saw her, took her, and when we look at took her, we see carry away, seize, use, and so on. And so we understand from that is that he kidnapped her. How could he kidnap her? Because she was alone. She didn't have her support. And what did he do? He kidnapped her and slept with her and defiled her. He brought her to nothing. He just destroyed her future. Right? So the Bible tells us now, so in verses 3 and 4 is where we had left off, where Jacob heard what had happened. Right? Now, when we are told in verse 5 that he heard, when you look at the word here, it seemed like Shechem had sent him a message to tell him that I have your daughter and she can't come home. Right? She's now mine. She's now mine. So the Bible tells us that when Jacob heard what had happened, so here now when the word that is used for heard is S-E-M-A, translated to heard, and the root word from which we get the word for heard coming over, it is transliterated to S-H-A-M-A, and it is pronounced shamach, 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 meaning to hear intelligently, and I just focus on the words that I've emboldened, to discern or understood. So Jacob understood, he discerned what had happened to his daughter. He understood clearly that his daughter was raped. She was no longer a virgin, and she didn't have a husband. The man must have been beside himself at this point, right? Must have been beside himself, and not only him, but her mother, right? And those other women who understood the implication of what had happened to her. They were beside themselves, right? But the damage was done. So the Bible tells us that he understood what had happened to his daughter. He knew it. Couldn't escape it. He knew it. And then the Bible in the last part of verse 5 tells us that his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. So when it talks about him holding his peace, the word for peace here, or the word that is used, is W-E-H-E-H-E-R-I-S. He held his peace. And the word from which peace comes, that is transliterated to C-H-A-R-A-S-H, and it is pronounced harash, 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 meaning, and I'll just stick to the words that I've put in bold, to devise in a bad sense, to be silent, to be deaf, to leave off speaking, to be quiet, keep silence, be silent, speak not a word, hold tongue. So he didn't say anything, he just shut down. And he's thinking in his mind, how could this happen to my daughter? How could such a thing befall Dinah, my one girl? And he had to deal with that, and not only to deal with that, but by this time, I'm sure her mother was also aware, right? And everybody, maybe her mother was saying, where is my daughter? You're not going to go for her, you're not. And it was just chaos in the camp, right? Chaos in the camp. So let us continue. So he held his peace until they were come. He just kept quiet. He just zoned out everything. He held his tongue. Don't say good or bad, him just there. Imagine maybe he was just there with tears running down. Which father wouldn't cry? I don't know. Maybe by the time evening come or the suns come, I would be out of my mind. I'd be in, I don't know. But this is what happened to him, right? And this just tells us that even in our own lives, as children of God, sometimes we make mistakes that cost us dearly. Look at what happened to Jacob. Look at what happened to Jacob. All because he settled down to avoid a confrontation with his brother and built an altar where he shouldn't have built an altar. Right? Shouldn't have. When he was going, he said, if God will bring me back. And God brought him into the land. But that wasn't the agreement he had. He should have gone back to where God had met him and said, see, the circle has been completed. I am back at where I started at Bethel. He did not go back there. And that is what ruined him. The devil came in because he left an opening in the covenant. God had done his part and brought him back into the land. And it's for him now to just come back to that place of meeting and seal the covenant. And he left it open. And that, as simple as it is in the physical, it manifested in the spiritual, and the devil came in through it. Had his daughter raped. Right? Now let's continue. Let's continue with this. So now the Bible says, Hamor, the father of Shechem, verse 6, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. So when we look at the word commune here, because I don't take any word in the passage for granted, you may have noticed that by now, right? I love to look at all of them because I want to have a clear understanding of what transpired and what the Bible is talking about, not in terms of what my understanding is based on my education here and now, right? So in the text, the word that is used is L-E-D-A-B-B-E-R, and it is translated to speak. And the word from which we get speak or to speak come from is transliterated to D-A-B-A-R, and it is pronounced davar, davar, and meaning to arrange. but used figuratively of words to speak, or rarely in a destructive sense, like to subdue, right? Or it could mean to answer, to appoint, to bid, to command, to commune, to promise, to use entreaties, right? So what it seems, and at the bottom here, I have written something. It says, it seems like Hamor tried to de-escalate the situation because he acknowledged that it was a bad thing that his son had done, right? He realized that my son shouldn't have done this. This is not something that is okay. So what did he do? He went out now to use entreaties, to talk kindly to Jacob, to apologize, and to try his best to make amends, to arrange how this can be fixed. And the only fix he can see is that, look, this girl cannot go off. No other man not going to want her. So let him have her. But would she really, in her, this is a nightmare situation for her, right? Who wants to get married to a man who raped her? Right? I can't think of anybody who would want to be engaged in this marriage. Right? But she also knew that where it comes to ever getting married and having children, there is concerned, that's now zero for her. Her life is done. So her parents are in a bad position. They now have to try to think now, how do we correct this? How do we even live with the idea that our daughter is to marry somebody who raped her? How could they ever accept him as a son-in-law? You see how the whole thing just got totally messy, right? Totally intolerable. I don't know how this was going to be resolved. This is one only God could solve, right? So let us look at what happened here. So he went out to make entreaties or to make an arrangement how they can fix this problem, right? So whilst he's there, the Bible says in verse 7, the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. So here again, the same word that was used when it talks about Jacob heard, they understood it was relayed to them. That they understood what had taken place, and the men were grieved. That is our brothers, right? They were grieved. How could this happen to our daughter? Where were her chaperones? Where were the persons who were supposed to look after her? Where was her mother? And everybody's mind was just in turmoil, asking all the questions, trying to get answers. And the devil was just there laughing. Let me see what you're going to do now. Right? Having a grand time. So they were very grieved and they were very wroth. And the word here for very wroth is W-A-Y-Y-I-H-A-R. And in the text, it says they burned with anger. And the word from which we get anger coming, it is transliterated to C-H-A-R-A-H, and that is pronounced hara, hara, hara. Now, you may notice that I have, beside where I have H-A-H-H-A-R-A-H-H, there's another word. That is really the pronunciation that is given, or the phonetics that is given where in the source that I use. But those persons, they understand the language, and so they understand that when they see K-H-A-W, for me it would be har or something like that, right? In essence, when they really translate it or pronounced it, they don't use the K. The K just translates to a kind of heavy H. So when I have the double H, you make an emphasis on it. So it's hara, hara, right? Or anything like that. So that's how I come up with it. And it means to glow or to grow warm, to blaze up, to be zeal or jealousy, or to be angry, or to burn, or to be displeased, right? Or to be very grieved, and so on. So we realize that they burned with anger. These men or brothers were livid. They understood the implication, and they wanted somebody dead. Right? They wanted somebody dead. In their minds, man head for roll for this. All right? So I'm wanting us to understand all of this, that was happening, Because so let me read all of verse 7. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. So here now, when it says they wrought folly, the word here is Nebalah. And some of you, that word might sound familiar, like Nabal, something to do with David. We won't get down into that, but it's the same word, right? Nebalah, and it is translated to folly. And the transliteration of the root word from which folly comes is Nebalah, and it is pronounced nevala. So you notice the B, unless the B is at the beginning of a word, it is generally not pronounced as a B, but more like a V. So Abraham is not really pronounced Abraham. We pronounce in English and say Abraham, but the proper pronunciation would be Avraham, right? Avraham. So here now, the meaning of nevala, of course, the double H means there's a emphasis on the H, kind of heavy or harsh. It means foolishness. That is morally wickedness, right? Concretely, a crime, and by extension, punishment or villainy. So he had wrought a wickedness or a crime. Is not just doing foolishness. He had committed a crime. He had done what is morally wicked. He raped this girl. He robbed her of her innocence. He took away her entire future, her plans and hopes of having a husband that she loved and would give herself to for the first time. And that was just gone. Couldn't come back. There's no redeeming that. That is gone. Right? This is what the Bible tells us that was done. It was they in their mind, them said this is criminal. This is wickedness. This is villainy. And you think that they were going to just hand over their sister to somebody who did this? That young man had a screw missing in his head. Right? And he thought that because his father was a big man in the society, he could have done it and had his father to fix the problem. That's how his father went out there. Right? Because he thought that, his father is big, and he maybe he had done it with even other Canaanite girls. And so he saw this man and figured that, he can do what he wanted. Right? But there are different plans. So it tells us here which thing ought not to be done. So what does it mean? And the notes, I underline it in red here. This is what it says. So in the text, remember, in their language, you will read from right to left. All right, so you see me having the arrow at the side there. So so this is how it would be would read. And this thing was not to be done. So the W-E-K-E-N is the first set of letters that is there that says and this thing. And the law is shows the negative, was not. And Y-E-A-S-E-H that shows that to be done. So it says, and this thing was not to be done. And of course, I put it, rearrange it now to how we read from left to right. And it says, and this thing was not to be done. It seems that what Shechem had done was not an acceptable behavior among the people of the land either. So it's not that those persons in the land, they were allowed to do these things. A man just see a young girl and take her and rape her and whatever. No. The Bible tells us here, this thing was not to be done. So it wasn't acceptable by the in the land either. Right? It wasn't acceptable, and it was certainly not acceptable among the household of Jacob. In his thing, the word that they used to demonstrate there was that it was wickedness, evil, villainy, criminal, right? And it was not to be done. It was never accepted behavior. So now that having been established, Hamor comes out, and notice the commune comes up again. The first thing we are told in verse 6, Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to commune with him. And then we are being told, and Hamor communed with them. But we are told in between that it wasn't an acceptable behavior, right? And so Hamor went out to try pacify, as we would say in Jamaica, this situation that had presented itself and this wickedness that his son had gotten into, right? So Hamor now tried to negotiate and talk to them, right? And how did he do it? Here is what he said. He came out and he said, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you, give her him to wife. I'm asking you, give her him to wife. Notice here, it doesn't go, and certain words are not used. And we're going to look at, you know, how the liberty is in how he speaks, because his son has put him in a very precarious position. By right, he should have imprisoned his son. His son should be in prison for this criminal act, right? But he goes and he tries to fix it before it blow out of proportion. He doesn't go to the elders and say, boy, my son has done something wrong. You know, he went and he raped the daughter of the stranger. What should we do? His father goes out and he tries to de-escalate the thing before it reached to the council. And it ends up costing them very dearly. Right? So let us continue looking at this now. Let me see if I have anything else here. Right. I say here in these verses, I think Shechem had put Hamor in a very precarious or embarrassing position, and he was trying to remedy the bad situation. And this is what is conveyed in verses 8 to 10. So he now says, my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. How did he mean he longed for her? And he just raped her. It means that he had his eyes on her a long time. This is part of why I said that he had his eyes on her. There was, for some time, he was eyeing this damsel, wanted her to be his wife. But for some reason, maybe he couldn't get near her. But on this particular date, he saw her, and the devil stood up in him, and he did what he did. So he says now, I pray you, give her him to wife. The situation bad, but let her get married to him, so that at least she will have a future of having a husband, having children, and he, as bad as him be, will have the girl that he wants. Right? Not a very good proposition, but the only one that this father had in front of him in this case. Right? Verse 9. And make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. So he's trying to show them that, you know, you can integrate and make we see how best we can deal with the situation. And it's not just her, but all of you can, you know, be a part of us. And, you know, he's trying to quell the situation, right? So let us continue here. And you shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. Right? Yeah, man, settle down and, integrate. He doesn't want this to go to the council. Because chances are if it go to the council, they're going to say, your son should die. Right? So here now. So look at this now. Verse 11. So this is what the father says between verses 8 and 10. He tries to pacify the situation. But what happened now? His son comes in and puts in his mouth into the discussion. Verse 11, between verse 11 and 13. Right? Let's read it. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Right? Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me. But give me the damsel to wife. Right? This is what he said. Notice, he has not apologized. And he thinks money can fix everything. That only God. And verse 13 says, and the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. He opens his mouth. His father is trying to pacify the situation. He's trying to de-escalate. He don't come and, talk as if it's the girl's fault. But here now, the boy opens his mouth, right? And say, oh, let me find grace in your eyes. You just raped the man's daughter. And the boy is the man's sister. And you want to find grace in their eyes, and whatsoever you say unto me, I will give. Give what? He thinks that money can solve all problems and money can sweep things under the carpet. Right? So he now goes in verse 12 and he says, ask me never so much dowry and gift. Again, is as if money can solve this problem. What is your price? Let us get rid of this man. It's just, it's just a girl kind of thing. It's Jacob one daughter, as far as we know, right? One daughter. And it's the boys or the men's one sister. They don't have another one. They would move mountain for that one. Right? They would move mountains for her. And he comes now and say, any amount of dowry or gift, I will give it. But give me the damsel to wife. Again, look at the word he uses there, damsel. She's no damsel again. Him take care of that when he raped her. And he's not thinking. And I believe that those words of Hamor, of Shechem, between verses 11 and 12, that is what sealed his fate. The brothers decided that this man must die. So I think Shechem's word in verse 12 is what cost him his life. It seems that up to that point, he hadn't apologized for his action. He still referred to her as Nara, which is a damsel, knowing fully well that she was no longer a damsel. She was no longer a virgin. Nobody did not want her, look at her and want her to marry again. Him done mess up her life. And verse 12 now gives us our brother's reaction to that, knowing that she was no longer a damsel and that he never even showed any remorse. That is why now they answered him deceitfully. Because he had raped her, because he had no remorse. And mash up her, and then him come and offer money. How do we know that this was what killed and undid it? If we go to the last verse in the chapter, verse 31. Remember, wherever the subject is, when you have the main things coming up, you always have it being dealt with, and then at the end, you would have something again to it. See it here? They said, should he deal with our sister as with an harlot, rape her, do what I want, and then offer money for what he had done? They never apologized to their father for their action. They said, look, he's only one time we could kill him. Rape Dinah, offer money. When him done, this is where he offered the money. Verse 12, and it cost him his life. Right? Never apologized. Instead, he offered money. And the brother decided, all right, it's all right. We know how to deal with you. He never heard about these brothers. And we're going to learn some more about them. And they said unto them, so this now is how they are answering Hamor and Shechem deceitfully. They said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. And here the word from which reproach comes. It is H-E-R-P-A-H, and it is translated to disgrace, for it is a disgrace unto us, right? And the root word from which we get that word that comes across as disgrace, it is, the transliteration is C-H-E-R-P-A-H, and it is pronounced herpa, right? Meaning disgrace or shame, right? It's a shame, a disgrace, a reproach. And then they went on in verse 15 and says, but in this will we consent to you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you will be circumcised. All of you. So you want us to integrate and be one people and sing kumbaya, one big happy family. For us to do that, all of you must become like us. This is not now only limited to Shechem and Hamor. All of you have to become like us. Have to be circumcised, all the male. Then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. Right? This gave them the impression that everything was nice. But it was in deceit. So in the text, the word that is used here for one is E-H-A-D, and the word from which it comes is transliterated to E-C-H-A-D, and it is pronounced ehad, right? Meaning united, all together or together. We will become one united people. We will all come together, hold hands, and sing kumbaya round the campfire. Of course, nothing of the sort would take place. But if he will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then will we take our daughter and we will be gone. Right? And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son, because them not said, boy, that is foolishness you have done, and whatever. No, they heard them out, and when Shechem made his pronouncement, the boys looked on each other and they knew what they were going to do. And they said, all right. And they told, now remember, how did this come up? Is it that they went aside? No. Remember when they were coming from the field, they had opportunities to plan and scheme among themselves what them going to do with these people. Right? The only person who never knew what they were going to do was their father. Because they may have said, you know, Daddy now go on the war and the cascas, so we not say nothing to him. Don't say nothing to him. And we see it again in these brothers. When they took their own brother Joseph and conspired and did what they were going to do and sell him off in slavery and come tell them father's story. Right? This wasn't new. These boys, they could be ruthless. right? How many years they live with that secret, and they never told their father that they had a hand in Joseph's disappearance. Nothing. And every day they saw him, and they saw his pining away and his grief. And they said, boy, we're going to live with that, you know. We made a decision and we did what we were going to do, and we not can't say nothing. Right? You can't snitch. You have to take it. These boys were different. So let us jump over. Let's see what we can cover. We'll soon finish off here. So their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man deferred not to do the thing because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. So we're just going to look at verse 19 and take it there. So here, let us get this word that is used here to describe Shechem gives us an insight as to who he is. Right? He's young. That's a young but no storm. He didn't even think of the implications of what he had done. So the word that is used here in the text is Hanar, translated to young man. It is also a word that can be used to describe a female. Same word can be used, but if it's applied to a woman, the same context, but only in the way of a female, right? And the word from which that comes is N-A-A-R, and it is pronounced Nahar, right? Meaning, concretely, a boy from the age of infancy to adolescence. So we know that he's just a young man, right? It's not like a 30-year-old or anything like that. He's beneath that age, right? In our days, we would say, you know, he's below 18 or something like that, right? But in those days, their age of consent was like up at age 30 and so on, right? A boy, a lad, or a young man. All right, so that is what he's, a young man. He was just young. He never understood certain things. And as I said before, you know, Jamaican saying, young bud no storm. And here he was putting his father into a very precarious position, having raped this girl. And when his father is trying to fix the problem, he opens his mouth and offers money, right? And the brother said, he's all right. This man mustn't live, man. Right? So he now deferred not. He didn't put off. He didn't procrastinate. He didn't loiter. And the word from which we get deferred here is E-H-A-R, translated to deferred. And the root word in the Hebrew from which you get that E-H-A-R is A-C-H-A-R, and it is pronounced ahar, 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 and it means to loiter or to procrastinate, to defer or to delay or to tarry. So it says he wasted no time to do the thing. So come daddy, make we go deal with this thing. Right? And why? Because he had delight in Jacob's daughter. And the word here for delight is H-A-P-E-S, and the root word from which that comes is transliterated to C-H-A-P-H-E-T-S, and it is pronounced hafetz, 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 right? And it is to incline to, or, and I'm just sticking to the words that I have put in bold, or to desire, or to be well pleased, or to have pleasure. So he was inclined to Dinah. He wanted her a long time. We would say a long time him love her. right? This wasn't a no thing. So he wasted no time. He saw an opportunity now, said, boy, I'm going to get her now. He doesn't think about how he's messing up her life and her mind, you know, because there's no way she would, I'm sure that she was enjoying any of this. But he never thought like that. Why? He's just a young boy. Not understand life. But he was about to pay with his life for his ignorance. Right? And then the last part says, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And the word from which honorable comes here, in the word that is used in the text is Nikbad, and it is translated to more honorable. And the root word from which that comes is Kabad, and it is pronounced kavad, kavad, or kaved, kaved, meaning to be heavy. That is in a bad sense, to be burdensome or severe or dull, or if you use it in a good sense, it speaks about numerous, being rich, or being honorable, or causatively, in a good sense, to make weighty, and it can be in the same two senses, whether bad or good, or to be abounding with, to be more grievously afflicted, to boast, to be chargeable, heavy, heavier, honorable. Well, it's pretty much just repeating those words. So what it means or meant was that he was more respected, or the more respected of all of his father's children. Right? Maybe he was involved in some way in politics, you know, he would go about with his father, people know him, maybe he had a nice face and a good smile, you know, nice personality. He's the boy that everybody wants to be at their party. He is the guy that all the girls want to date, you know, but he had his eyes on this stranger. And because he was more honorable than all his father's house, he was more appealing. Everybody regarded him. Remember, his father was the governor, you know. His father was the ruler in the land. And everybody looked up to this son. That means he had political sway, even though he was a young man with not much sense. And because of that now, he went to the gate of the city and spoke with the men. They went there now to talk to everybody, right? Because they could hopefully influence the people, the men, to do something. He doesn't tell them what he did, you know, as we will see. He doesn't tell them what he did. He only talked to them about how the people would want to come together as one people, right? And so on. And that's the story they gave. But they left off the detail that he raped the man's daughter, right? Because if he had told that to the men of the city, maybe they would have said, hey, but that's your problem to fix. We're not going to get involved in that. Why would we go and get circumcised to help you solve that problem, right? But he didn't tell them that. He told them about the opportunities for financial gain, right? And financial security and freedom. That's what they went and told, and the men bought it, as we will see when we continue. So we'll take it there for today. Are there any questions?